This is going to be the April albums. I haven't been able to talk about video, so this is pretty much all of that again. I will also work on the Machine Head and Stereophonics review and get them up soon, and Friday's coming, so there's going to be even more stuff coming, so definitely going to be a busy few days, and then I'm back at work for 4 days, so not looking forward to that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up, so instead of doing the worst, alright and best, I'm just going to put album order, anything just into random order, and give you my opinion on it, just so that way it's nice change of pace, and plus my PC really can't handle constantly having to put the stuff I do into that. So I apologise if the video editing isn't great. Blame my computer because it is really struggling, and I don't even know how I'm even able to record at this point, but yeah, there you go. The new Heart Attack Man album, I quite like this one, to be honest. Yeah, honestly, the post-punk sound they bring here is definitely by the numbers what they sounded like, and it doesn't really stray into the most original stuff from the band, but I still enjoy the energy, I still think the instrumentation's great, and I think they're managing to pull numbers still by just being themselves. I don't think there's really any need to divert entirely, because I still think the songs are as refreshing as they have been delivering beforehand. Yeah, maybe a little bit more experimenting probably, but I just enjoy a lot of the aspects they make into the punk sound. So yeah, this is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. We got the new album by the post-punk band Viagra Boys with Viagra Boys, a album that looks like the album art was AI generated, but that's kind of just the weirdness of the spelling, and the art itself, but it's legit art, so I like the concept of this. So this is an album that kind of stems away from more of a political aspect to their sound, and it's just more silly stuff like Man Made and Me. The fact that you get OnlyFans already referenced in this song kind of tells you that they want to go into a little bit more of this silly, stupid, tongue-in-cheek sort of humour, and I think it works throughout the entire record. I think the album has just a lot of fun material, a lot of fun moments. I love Bog Body, it's a great follow-on from arguably one of the strongest tracks. Uno 2 as well is a great song. Honestly, these singles have been great, and then the non-album singles are also pretty good and keep up to the standard of Dirty Boys just being a really fun post-punky silly song. Waterboy has some weird vocal passages that make this one quite intriguing and interesting, and yeah, honestly, there's not really a weak point on this record. I'm not the biggest fan of River King. I think it's just because I'm used to the kind of silliness of post-punk on this album, and just to kind of change it at the last track, I mean, I can expect bands will do that, a lot of bands can do it. I mean, Softplay did a more sorrow-filled final track on Heavy Jelly with more serious tone to it, and even bands like Kid Capici also did one that's more or less paying an homage out of respect to a former friend. So you can definitely put more emotional aspects to it, as it does show that the creator isn't just being, you know, silly, but he can also show his true emotions, and I think that's what makes Viagra Boys' album here pretty good. I haven't really dabbled in too much of the band, but I like this album a lot. I think I'll give it a good old 4 out of 5. It's a lot of fun, and I gotta be honest, it's just fun to put on. Even if I'm not the biggest fan of River King, I can still listen to it. It's probably the weakest thing for me, but I still think it fits in terms of the context of the album. Just a lot of good stuff. I like it. Storm Orchestra with their new album, or their debut album as well, Get Better, and I could be telling them to take advice from the album title. I'm only joking, but it's not that amazing of a record, but there's definitely effort put into this. The upbeat energy is quite nice and refreshing, especially since this could kind of take elements of Rain City Drive from that aesthetic, because I kind of get the impression that that's kind of a potential influence through the band, and they could take that and then drive it into a more emo territory is what I could have expected. But the upbeat energy is quite nice. There's numerous points in the songs where I think the songs actually aren't that bad at all, but just kind of minor nitpicks that do drag it down a bit, like Bright Soul. Love the aesthetic of this song. but I really don't like the refrain just going smash the limit, smash the limit. It just sounds really obnoxious and annoying, and that's kind of the only thing I'm not a big fan of, is the weird quirky sort of sounds that you get that incorporate into the tracks as well. I think everything else is fine. There's nothing that jumps out with this pure amazing new energy this band's bringing, but I can't say it's a bad thing either. You got some features, but I gotta be honest, Crush the Mirrors featuring Chunk, no Captain Chunk, I didn't really vibe with the presence, as it just didn't even really feel, I couldn't even tell half the time where the support actor, or no, where the feature act appeared. It's a fine album, I just think it's definitely got a lot of potential that I don't think they quite reached yet. Not really feeling the debut record from Glare, Sunset Funeral. So I know there's been controversy tied to the band, where one of the members, who I believe is the frontman and also a guitarist for the band, Rez, has been kicked out of the band due to pedo allegations. So due to this stuff, it's definitely interesting to see that he's still on the material because of the amount of setbacks it's had. I'm not saying that takes away anything in general. Glare's trying to continue on without this lingering for them, but yeah, this is just kind of basic alt rock shoegaze. There's definitely some bands that do sound similar to this, much better, but frankly I'm not really feeling it. Morning Haze was a decent start, and some of the songs towards the end aren't too bad, but it's just kind of more or less the same thing, and I think it's pretty much a blend of what a lot of bands been doing. Gale's just been kind of doing mid at best with it, so yeah, not feeling it. Gonna give it 2 out of 5. Yeah, sorry everyone, Black Country New Road is in my worst for this, unfortunately. I don't really talk about this band as I'm just not really a fan. I think Isaac Wood is a pretty decent vocalist, and I think the writing, songwriting wise, is probably the best, but I did even found some of the vocals in Ants From Up There just to not really be for me, and the weakest part probably is the instrumentation. I like the experimental part of having piano saxophones. A lot of bands incorporate different instrumentals to really make their music pop out, and Black Country New Road just does it without any problem. It does it in a way that you notice them, but I can't really say I've been a fan of this band, and Ants From Up There did not help, and Forever Howlong being a huge departure, not having Isaac Wood anymore in the band, and instead having a female lead who I can't remember the name of, so I apologise. I'll put the name over the video, but I can't really say I'm a big fan. The writing feels a bit different, but not really anything that feels out of the ordinary, and vocally, I'll be honest, I actually kind of prefer the more consistent part of it, because there was some moments Isaac Wood's vocals just kind of didn't work for me, but Black Country New Road, it hasn't really been stepping up either. I think Ants From Up There might be a little bit stronger from this, but I'm just not really a big fan, so I guess it's just a bias part of it. I know I technically could have just not reviewed it, but I always wanted to give this a go and see if it connected with me. It did not, but maybe the next album might, but I'm going to have to give it a 2, so I apologise for that. We've got a new album from a brand new group called Opia. This is a gothic doom metal band from the UK and Spain, and this is pretty good for a debut. The only critique I could give is probably the mixing and production could be tweaked a bit just to kind of give it a more I guess perfected sound. Just everything feels properly mixed, rather than just have this bit more of this ambient aesthetic that kind of overwhelms a little bit, but I think that also kind of adds to the charm as well. The gospel aesthetic's nice. The female vocalist for this group is also quite great as well. I think the fact that they take inspiration from numerous Scandinavian gothic doom metal bands, especially getting a little bit of that death metal aesthetic from Insomnium, is one of the bands I think of when listening to this, and it's quite nice to see this representation here. It's definitely a very small artist, and probably one of the smallest bands I've ever talked about, but Opia is definitely underrated for sure, and I really enjoy it. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. Superheaven is basically trying to reinvent the wheel, bring themselves back. They had a big resurgence with Youngest Daughter being a viral hit on TikTok to the point where the song actually certified gold in the US, which is pretty crazy that a few bands have managed to get something like that through TikTok resurgence. Bands like Sleep Token and Bad Omens are some of the few that even managed to get this, but Superheaven managed to get one, and I'm very impressed with it. The new album they bring, kind of going more into this kind of grunge mix with shoegaze, isn't too bad, but Superheaven normally keep it light-hearted. They don't really go too risky in the sound, and frankly, it kind of keeps this similar sound we've heard already. It doesn't really reinvent the wheel, but it just more or less tries to show polish over time from how they can bring the intricacy of their last album sound in a similar format while also making it feel refreshing. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I have to say. It's not that interesting, but as an album it sounds fine and it's pretty decent, so I'll give it a 3 out of 5. This is the small band Air-Drawn Dagger, a guide for Apparitions, an electronic emo band, something you don't see too much necessarily unless a emo band plays heavily into pop and uses a lot of electronics. This is kind of something that is refreshing to see. Unfortunately, the execution isn't quite as strong to make me think that this is one of the best ideas or one of the best albums to represent this fusion of genres, but I still think it's got a lot of good stuff nonetheless. I don't think the writing is top notch, but the aesthetic the record brings does have some good ideas. Teeth is one of the more experimental tracks I can't really get into, but gives the variety and keeps you on your toes at least. Tracks like Sanctifound and Sweatin' are good ways to reel you into this, and then Skinwalker is probably my favourite on the record. I honestly like the kind of hard rock blend they have here. The album is pretty decent, I'll give it a 3 out of 5, but definitely not mind-blowing, and there definitely could be more to it. We got the new one by Melvins, Thunderball, and I gotta be honest, I know people probably won't agree with the fact I put this in the worst, but it is definitely so much underwhelming than the last year album Tarantula Heart, which I felt had a good amount of variety within the 5 songs to really reel me in, but these just feel like B-sides that are less memorable and less interesting. And the annoying thing is that one of these songs is more or less an interlude and not really much of a song, Vomit of Clarity. So you practically got less material here, and I think for the weight of this record, for it to come out just like this quickly, I don't think it's necessarily worth it, and I kind of wish I was more polished to it. The songs that aren't interludes just don't really reel me in either. King of Rome's probably the strongest song, and I guess Venus Blood also is a nice way to end it. The longer songs are pretty much the main reason this album's over 30 minutes, but I can't really say that they necessarily use the time as well as they do with Tarantula Heart, so unfortunately I'm going to have to give it a 2 out of 5. The new album by Landmarks, the darkest place I've ever been, despite the fact that the album art looks bright, and I've been to darker places than this actually, so yeah. Anyway, this metalcore band has been getting a lot of attention recently. This is kind of their breakthrough album, I'd say, with just how well the singles were doing and just the attention the band's been getting. A lot of praise, and I will say a lot of glazing as well. The album definitely has charm to it, and I like the fact that they are putting the new metal aspect into it. To some extent, I like it at least. I think the metalcore aspects of just the normal sound of stuff like Sulphur and Requiem just make for some fun songs, and even the Line in the Dust, which, although this one does kind of give me a bit of a Linkin Park presence, it's nice to see While She Sleeps feature on this one, but the Linkin Park is the big thing I think of when I listen to this album. The fact that The Great Unknown sounds like pushing me away entirely with the guitars and the chorus and everything, it definitely feels like a Hybrid Theory song. I kind of feel like it's forcing the Linkin Park influence. The French singing in this is also nice to kind of have it entwined as rapping. I think it definitely makes the new metal stand out with just in their own way, especially since the band's French. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Linkin Park stuff kind of gets a bit overwhelming, and I can't say I'm the biggest fan of how the album ends. I get they want to do this emotional end of a song, but I'm just not really feeling it. Plus, lyrically, it's fine. I just think like some of the lyrics just don't really feel as strong to me. Some of them just kind of feel a bit simplistic. But yeah, I think it's an overglazed album, but it's still a good album. If I had to be honest, I think Lost in the Waves is a stronger album than this, but this ain't bad either. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. Just an overpraised album in my opinion. We got the new one by Luna Kills DEATHMATCH. So this is a new industrial metal blended band that I guess has similar aesthetic to Poppy as well as Wargasm, sort of in that vein of the electronic new metal direction. And I gotta be honest, I don't think it's too bad, but I just don't think the concept really warranted what we got here. There's some nice elements, and I think the vocals definitely do have this interesting flair to them, and I think this direction the instrumentations go for do generally rein into a good territory for the genre, but I just find a lot of the songs just kind of have this really shoddy mixing that makes it very distinct and easy to identify, that kind of makes me not as invested into it. I think there's some decent ideas and nothing that really feels like it feels a stinker. I feel like the writing even works fine for what it's going for, but Luna Kills generally, with how many bands we have going and a lot of bands playing with these this sort of direction, I think I just want to see how the band goes from here. There's definitely some good ideas, but definitely stuff I'd work on for. So I think it's just an alright album at the end of the day. I'm not really a fan of the new GhostSeeker album, Divergence. So this is a new band and this is their debut. The album art looks pretty cool. If it isn't AI, I do like it. But the stack of the record is just kind of hard to grasp. It just feels very basic, just like kind of playing into the electronic metalcore, electronic core sound a little bit, while incorporating a lot of these digital techno elements. That is okay, I suppose, but the biggest downside to this record is how awful the mixing is. It's really shoddy, and matter of fact, I had to take my headphones off and play in one ear and then the other ear just to see if it is just my headphones playing up, but it sounds really weird. It sounds like it's kind of far away, and it's more in favour of my left ear, which is quite interesting. Maybe it could be the right, but it definitely feels like there is something wrong with the mixing here. I feel like all I can say for the band at this point is to just kind of experiment a little bit more, because it kind of comes off as a bit basic. There's not really anything that feels refreshing, just kind of stuff that I've heard before. But you know, for a first debut album from a small band, it's not the worst thing, but I can't really say I'm big on it, unfortunately. I'm going to give it a 2. Employed to Serve, a metalcore band, they've released a new album that kind of is a huge change in from their mathcore sludgy sound to kind of just basic generic metalcore. It's definitely something that I can't really get into. Even if they have some promising features, I will be honest, Jesse Leach's feature on Whose Side Do You Want's great, but I can't really get into Atonement, which features Will Ramos, or Last Laugh, which features Serena Cherry. I feel the album is just generally filled with kind of really weak guitars, just annoying synths here and there, and the clean vocals really don't work very well on this record. I gotta be honest, I'm not really feeling it. It's a 2 out of 5 for me. New one by Leave, The Cost of Compromise. It's good. I think it's nice to see that we are getting post-hardcore hard rock bands that can bring this sound back in a way that's intricate and interesting, because a lot of bands imitate it and kind of poorly present it in that style. But this is definitely refreshing. It's nice to kind of get the energy here, especially since I wasn't really the biggest fan of Being as an Ocean, the album they did last year, which sort of more or less plays with these elements. And speaking of that band, Michael McGough, former member, one of the last members we had for Being as an Ocean before it became a one-man project, he is featured on Longing to Believe, and I think they play off each other quite nicely. Outside of what we've got with some good songs like Coma, Dead Dreams, and Phantom, it's not the most intricate album, it's not that exciting in general. I think it just kind of plays a little safe into the direction they're going for here, but I definitely think it's still fun and figure-eighting, so I definitely would recommend giving this one a listen. 3 out of 5. The new Scowl album is quite different from How Flowers Grow, their debut record, 2021, but this is Are We All Angels, their second record, and the change is quite different. The first album was more into the hardcore punk with just more of the alternative metal influence. There's a lot more of this unclean delivery with just these very graspy, gritty growls to the main aspect of the record, but then Are We All Angels kind of fluctuates more with softer vocals and gives you more of this pop punky feel. I can feel that this was a huge decision for the band and it could come without any controversy, but knowing that, well, Scowl started getting their popularity through their first album, very bold move to do this. Honestly, when bands change their genre quite like that on the go, they are met with a lot of negativity, but to kind of change into more of this pop punk sound on the second album, at least the band wants to try and experiment and keep things fresh. I, for one, not really big on it. I think there's some interesting variety on here, but How Flowers Grow, I remember enjoying that record a fair bit. Every so often I played it, and this just feels kind of like a different band, to be honest. If you're into it, then I can get it, but it is kind of a departure from the stronger aspect. I kind of liked the more gritty, heavier aesthetic to Scowl. Now this kind of feels like the band name shouldn't necessarily apply as much. Scowl just makes me think of early Scowl, or at least debut album Scowl, not second album. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of it. I'm going to have to give it a 2 out of 5. You got a new album by the pretty underrated, one of the earlier instances of a classic metalcore band, Caliban, Back from Hell. Their debut album in 1999. It's insane to see how many albums the band have gone since, especially since most people would think of metalcore, they think of Bullet for My Valentine, Killswitch Engage, debut era. So it's nice to see something that's not even, I mean, although technically it started from the last decade, right at the end, 1999, it's still nice to see something that's a band that's over 26 years old in metalcore. But Caliban are managing to keep this direction still refreshing. Although they've had some slip-ups and some weak material, the addition of the new clean vocalist has been a very intricate part of this of the new Caliban sound actually sounding pretty tight. The instrumentation's great. I honestly enjoyed the heavy vocals. Sometimes the album teeters more into deathcore territory, but at the same time it still keeps the classic metalcore aesthetic, and it's quite experimental with a lot of songs that just stood out, like Infection, one that plays with a lot more of these electronic beats while giving you this hard-hitting energy. You've got 3 features on this one, the Browning, and pretty much a digital deathcore sort of sound, and I think that their addition to Back from Hell was quite nice. Dear Suffering features Joe Bad and Fit for an Autopsy, which honestly are one of the most consistent bands in the genre. And then you have Mental Cruelty for Guilt Trip. The variety's great, and there is not really a song that is that weak, to be honest. There's some better than others, but for Caliban this is pretty good, and generally one of the best albums they put out in ages. Gonna give this one a nice 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoy it and I recommend it. Yeah, April hasn't been the strongest month, quite a mixed bag, but there has been some great gems still, and then just some stinkers. I think it's interesting, but May is definitely promising. My opinion, at least. I probably can say I'm definitely looking forward to some of the albums there, and I'll talk about them when I get to them. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.